This is the Lamborghini Urus, and it is the new Lambo SUV, and the numbers are amazing. 640 horsepower, 627 pound-feet of torque, 0 to 60 in 3.6 seconds, and a starting price of around $200,000. And today, I'm going to drive it. I've borrowed this Urus from O'Gara La Jolla, which is the Lamborghini dealership here in the San Diego area, where the Urus has been on sale now for a few months. And it's been surprisingly popular, with most Urus models selling almost immediately after arriving in the dealership showroom. And that's why I haven't driven the Urus yet. Last year, I put up a video with the Urus, and I showed you all of the quirks and features of the Lambo SUV, but I wasn't able to drive it because that one was a pre-production model. Since then, the Urus has gone on sale, but just about every one that comes in sells almost before it arrives, and so I haven't gotten the chance to get any seat time. But this one has arrived. It has stayed for a couple of days, and so now I can get behind the wheel and drive it, and then I will give it a Doug score. And if you want to see the quirks and features of the Lambo SUV, click the link below, and you can see my video from last summer where I take you on a tour of this car in depth. For now, let's drive. All right, driving the Urus. I have wanted to do this for quite some time. First impression, the driving position is actually higher than I expected. You know, you look at this thing, you see kind of the sloping roof line, you see it kind of squashed down, you think maybe it's just like a tall hatchback. It feels like an SUV. I'm behind a 3 Series and I feel like a step up above it. I really like that. I really like that sort of up high position, and also it feels very good, feels very stable, well put together. Oh my God. Oh, it's so fast. Wow. That is speed like on the next level of speed from what I was thinking it would be. You know, I just drove the new Cayenne Turbo, and that was fast, but and the Bentayga is fast, but they're fast in sort of a luxury SUV way. This is fast in a Lambo way. You put your foot down and they pulled no punches on this car. It feels just as insane as I was kind of hoping it would feel from this powertrain. That is really actually impressively quick. Wow, it just feels like a monster. I'm really impressed with it. Oh, and it's just ready to go. You gear down and it is like, yeah, all right, let's do it. Wow. Yeah, this is fast. I'm not hitting crazy speeds, going up to maybe 60 or so. This is really impressively fastly fast. You know, it's interesting because you look at it on paper and you think, well, isn't it just a Cayenne with a different body, or like an RS Q7, you know? Well, maybe, but this car doesn't put any shame to the Lamborghini name. It's not like you're looking at this going, oh, it should have been an Audi. It also just feels like a good, well put together SUV with a good SUV seating position. Everything about it feels surprisingly competent, tremendously competent. It feels like it's very solid. Like people say they like about the G-Wagon, you know, that it feels very solid and well built. This feels like that. The steering is great. You can tell that from any movement. It is not sports car quick. I actually just drove the 720S. It doesn't steer like that. That'd be nice. Not quite on that level. But it is really precise, and it does do exactly what you want it to when you turn the wheel. As good as any SUV I've ever driven. The Stelvio Quadrifoglio I thought was a really impressive car in terms of steering. This is definitely on that level, or better perhaps. It's certainly a little bit better than the Cayenne Turbo. It does feel like it's just a little bit more precise. The steering feel is a little bit better, a little heavier, a little less luxurious and more sports car, but you're still limited by the size and the scope and the weight of this vehicle. You're just never going to get a true sports car experience. Oh, the sound is good, not crazy. It doesn't sound like an Aventador, it doesn't sound like a Huracan. It just sounds like a powerful SUV, which is what it is, and that's fine. It'd be nice to get a Huracan SUV. I mean, this is a Lambo SUV. And so you're driving around and you get this same tall seating position people have in like 4Runners or whatever, but you're in a Lamborghini, and that's kind of neat. They did a good job making the interior cool looking and made it very distinct from like the Q8 and cars like that. There's a lot of Lambo stuff, there's a lot of different shapes, and you know, the whole center thing where you shift gears is bizarre and kind of cool in a weird Lambo way. One drawback of this car I'm actually surprised by is there's a little too much plastic and Audi style stuff in here. The interior, the steering wheel buttons look Audi. The center console buttons are kind of crappy plastic. There's some plastic around the climate vents, stuff you look at. I mean, this is a very expensive car. I think the sticker price on this one is around $275. That's a lot of money for a lot of plastic stuff. It's not what I really would suggest. I think it's a bit of a bargain considering what it offers and where the crazy luxury SUV game has gone. Power is good and very much right at your foot. I mean, the moment you want to go, you can just go. The car is ready. It'll grunt and take you where you want to be. I really like how stable it feels, how solid, how big and substantial it feels. It feels more substantial and more solid than it looks like it would feel. You look at it and you're like, oh, you know, that thing with the weird slope back, isn't it just going to feel like an Audi? No, it definitely has more of a bank vault feel to it than that. I generally like these exotic brand luxury SUVs. I like the Bentayga a lot. I liked the Cullinan. The Maserati Levante is no good. This is, if you were going to make a Lambo performance sport SUV, this is, in terms of driving experience anyway, exactly how I'd want to do it. The styling is maybe a different discussion. Obviously, it's polarizing. I also would have gone for like an off-roader crazy Raptor-like SUV. Since Lambo makes the best road cars, why not make the craziest off-roader SUV? They didn't do that. But if you were going to make a sport SUV, this is a really, really good example of that. I think this is just a fantastic vehicle. In a world where Lamborghini must make an SUV, this has been executed properly. It drives well, it feels good, and I like it. And it's quick. And so that's the Lamborghini Urus. I drive a lot of performance SUVs, so I've been very curious about this one and how this one would drive, especially because there's just so much hype. It's the new Lambo SUV. It's one of the fastest SUVs in the world, one of the most expensive SUVs on sale. Well, surprise, surprise, it drives exceptionally well, and it makes sense why these have been so popular already. Anyway, now it's time to give the Urus a Doug score. Starting with the weekend categories and styling, the Urus's design is certainly opinion-splitting. I like it, but I see why others don't, and it certainly isn't classically beautiful. It gets a 6 out of 10. Acceleration 0 to 60 is 3.6 seconds, and it gets an 8 out of 10. Handling, it's really sharp for an SUV, and it gets a 6 out of 10. Fun factor is high, given how fast and fun and noisy this is, and it gets a 7 out of 10. Cool factor is also very high, especially right now. Get one of these and you're driving around in the Lambo SUV, and that's big-time cool currency at the moment. It gets a 7 out of 10 for a total weekend score of 34 out of 50. Next up are the daily categories and features, and it's loaded with tons of equipment and screens and tech, and it gets a 9 out of 10. Comfort is very good, and it gets a 7 out of 10. Quality is high, the interior is nice, and the materials are generally good, short of those cheap plastics in places, and it gets a 7 out of 10. Practicality, it has good cargo space and a roomy interior, and it gets an 8 out of 10. Finally, value. The Urus is actually a decent value when you consider its performance credentials. $250,000 for a reasonably equipped Urus may seem like a ton, but it's cheaper than the Bentayga and the Cullinan, and not as far above top-level Cayenne Turbo and Tesla Model X models as I was thinking it would be. It gets a 6 out of 10 for a total daily score of 37 out of 50. Added up, and the Doug score is 71 out of 100, and the Urus gets dangerously close to unseating the Mercedes-AMG E63 wagon among cars like this. It's only short on acceleration and styling to the Mercedes, but don't worry, Urus fans. This is still the top SUV I've ever tested, beating out the Porsche Cayenne Turbo, the Bentley Bentayga, and the Alfa Romeo Stelvio Quadrifoglio.